Okay. All right, so let's start recording and let me share screen. Okay.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are so excited to have so many people here. And Kip, Dante is trying to be let into the meeting. He's going to join us with a cell phone, it looks like. So thank you so much for joining us. You might have heard as you're coming in that we were kidding about the librarians networking meeting and that they had 19 participants and we're up to 24. So we win. So thank you for being here. And I know a lot of you are trying to figure out how to incorporate IB in what you do. And so we're just going to start sharing what some of the things that we do. And all credit here goes to Kip for making the majority of these slides and Carrie out of the for the high school level. And then we will be sharing these slides with you and just kind of a Google folder full of takeaways and things you can adapt for your own use after this. And so kind of the structure we thought we would do is try to get through the slides and the content, make sure we cover those things, but please feel free to put questions in the chat as we're going through so you don't forget, and then we can talk more in full about them at the end of the slides. And then every now and then we might just pause and say, hey, give us your ideas on X when we're going through the chat. So.
And good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Oh, yay.
Yes.
I was trying to stall for you, Dante. I'm glad it's working.
Sorry, I was trying to troubleshoot. I'm using my phone and my laptop. So hopefully you'll be able to still hear me. I'm not sure if my video is on.
It's not, but we can hear you. So that's the important thing.
What about now?
Oh, there you are. Yay.
Okay. I can't see myself, so sorry about that.
That's all good.
Again, my name is, sorry, I'm sure I missed introductions. I am Dante Hicks. I'm the Director of Counseling Services at Thomas Jefferson Middle School. Sorry for the delay. I was having trouble with Zoom.
That's okay. And we actually didn't introduce ourselves. So thank you for kicking that off.
Okay.
And I did a lot of talking, but I didn't really say who I am. I'm Susan Russo. I'm the one you've been emailing with a little bit, and I'm a middle school counselor at Thomas Jefferson Middle School.
And I'm Carrie Climbs. I'm the IB school counselor at Old Mill High School.
And again, I apologize, Ms. Russo. Did you already go over the agenda?
No. So take it away. It was perfect timing.
Okay, perfect. So just want to go over, let you all know what we're going to be going over today in this networking session. So we will go over the learner profile, SMART goals. I'll talk about the master schedule and everything that it entails. We'll go over the inclusion policy. We'll go over student support, talk about needs assessments, grade level weekly meetings, talk about student needs, family needs, advisory council, student support team. We'll talk about lifelong learning and how academic counseling, self-management, and career resources, how that plays into it. So we have quite a bit to go over in this next hour.
Or hour and a half, give or take a little.
And as far as session outcomes, we're hoping that you'll leave with more than what you came with today, including handouts and things that you can take back and use in your schools immediately. But we're hoping that you understand the master schedule requirements and understand effective inclusion policy, share strategies and resources for student support, and share strategies and resources to support lifelong learning. This is something that I'm sure everyone has seen already, but we wanted to include it in the PowerPoint, again, just for something else you can take away. This just shows how all the different pieces and subjects work together in the IB program, how we're all working towards being international minded and how we're all including global context within each course. So we do all work together. I know one thing we make sure we try not to say at Thomas Jefferson, we try not to use the word core classes as it relates to math, science, history, and English, because essentially every class is a core class. And the next slide just shows the updated program standards. Again, this is just something else that you can take away. Here, everyone should have access to this PowerPoint. This, if you actually click on this table here, it should bring up a link. So this will be a Google Doc. And in the Google Doc, you'll notice that this is our current 2020 Standards Action Plan. However, we erased information that we use for our school. Well, we erased a lot of the information, but this is a good shell for you all to use for your own schools. We highlighted all the pieces that related to counseling. So I would definitely recommend taking your time. Doesn't have to be now, but whenever you have free time, take your time to go through the highlights, because those will be related to the counseling standards. And it'll show exactly what we're doing within counseling.
So I just wanted to share for a moment how we incorporate the IB learner profile, and we'll talk more in detail about this later. But I'm not sure how you have it set up at your schools, and feel free to drop it in the chat, but we rely heavily on our TA period, our teacher advisory period, or homeroom. And we incorporate that time for not only a lot of relationship building with our students, but kind of sharing the vocabulary we use as an IB MYP school, and then some explicit instruction around the IB learner profile. Including having students nominate students who demonstrate that profile, and just doing fun activities as well as learning activities around those different pieces. So there's just kind of a lot of discussion tied in every day, and we have our TA every day, so that students have that opportunity to relationship build and incorporate what they're learning into the IB model.
And for those of you at the high school level, the learner profile traits is, I use that when I write my letters of recommendation. I ask the kids what they feel their top 3 learner profile traits are. And then by the time they're seniors, you know them, really well. So sometimes I'll use theirs, sometimes I'll use mine. But it's a great way to talk about them as a person and tie it into IB.
I meant to say one more thing. You just prompted me. For those of you who are looking at applying for RAMP, or you're really trying to incorporate the mindsets and behaviors from ASCA for school counselors that are here, and I know we also have some principals and MYP coordinators, IB coordinators here too. But for those counselors who are looking to align things with ASCA, the learner profile, you see, just really meshes up nicely, as well as the approaches to learning. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later.
Okay, so next is the master schedule. And I'm sure, as you all know, it looks different this year because we're in a virtual environment. So our master schedule, we have all 8 subject groups. They're all offered while students are in middle school. And we make sure that the schedule does confirm that a minimum of 50 hours is offered for each of the subject groups. And this is for every single year. And as far as world languages, when students come into grade 6, one thing that sets our school apart from the rest of the schools in the county, because we are IB program, students in grade 6 all have an intro to world language course, and they continue with the same language. So they can have level 1 in grade 7, level 2 in grade 8, and they stick with the same language. So students will have language for all 3 years while they're in middle school, and hopefully they'll continue on when they move to high school. As far as other requirements, students do take at least like one visual art and one performing art discipline throughout middle school. There's a variety of design classes and fine arts classes that the students will take. And as far as physical education / health, students are in that class for at least half the school year. But the way we have it situated at our school, they take it every other day. So in grade 6, they'll take it every other day. So students will be in the course throughout the entire school year. In grade 7 and grade 8, they'll be in the course pretty much every day.
And when you're looking at the master schedule at the high school level, it's slightly different depending on your county and graduation requirements. I know I'm in Anne Arundel County, and because being MYP, they have to continue on with the same language for 9th and 10th grade. And then the arts and the PEs and the design, a lot of those fall under our graduation requirements. So it works out great. The kids, we get their graduation requirements out in 9th and 10th grade. They're also meeting the MYP requirements. And then they've got that free spot to take fun electives their junior and senior year when they're bombarded with all the IB diploma program classes. So it kind of, MYP mirrors well with our county and our state graduation requirements.
And you'll see now on the PowerPoint, this is our current daily schedule. This is the first year that Thomas Jefferson has moved to a block schedule. Because of the virtual environment, all the schools across the middle school moved to the same exact schedule. So if you take a look at grade 6, you'll see it's just slightly different from the rest of the grades. The last 2 periods, period 6 and period 7, students are in those classes pretty much every day. But periods 1 through 4, it's the every other day block schedule. Grade 7, they'll take their classes on a block. So they'll have most of their classes every other day. The only thing that remains constant, period 5, students will have period 5 every day. And you'll see that it's for a shorter period of time. We're not quite sure if we're going to stick with that same schedule next year, but that remains to be seen. This may be hard to see, but this is just a screenshot of one portion of the master schedule. So this shows our arts, design, and language courses. And as you can see, like across the very top row, we have our teachers, and then it has classroom number right below. And then it just shows the different periods 1 through 7. And all of our teachers teach 5 classes, and they have 2 planning periods. So it's just showing the classes that are taught and when.
Oh, Mr. Rousseau, you're muted.
And I was saying all sorts of nice things about you too. Okay, I'll say them again. So we wanted to talk about our inclusion policy. And I was just saying that this is something that Kip, our IB coordinator, spent a lot of time tweaking and sharing with our PTA and working with people to try to make sure that we were including everything that we should be considering in this policy. And it really relates to what we do as counselors, of course. So the purpose of the policy is really just to focus on removing any barriers that there might be for any learner. So not necessarily just special education students, but that could also include your English language learners, your gifted students, or students that don't have any labels but are falling through the cracks for whatever reason. So making sure that we find ways to identify those students and give them the supports that they need. So that ties in with our links to the, we tied into this description our links to the learner profile. As Carrie is saying, wherever we can put that language in and reinforce that, it's really important to do that. So we focused on how making sure in our inclusion policy that encompasses being open-minded and being a risk taker, a communicator, and being caring. So some of the ways that we kind of identify students who need additional support, probably very similar to the systems that you have in place in your school. But we start first with something that we haven't had this year in this virtual world, but we're missing, and we hope to have again next year. And that is an intervention period we call Yellow Jackets period. Our mascot's the Yellow Jacket. So we use this period to kind of meet the needs of all of our students and meet them where they're at. So if a student has significant gaps in math, for instance, then they would be in a math intervention period, or YJP period. And if they did amazing independent work on science and you want to help them really nurture that and grow so they're not bored in their science class, that might be a place where you can really help them expand their thoughts. So we have tons of different offerings during that YJ period, and we do a lot of kind of things to identify what would be the best place for students to be. So that includes counselors meeting during teachers' planning periods to talk about placement, and looking at all the options, and making sure that we're offering the things that students need. So for instance, our 8th grade year is a really packed year with helping students do the community project, and they've relied sometimes on the intervention period called YJP to focus on that. But we had a lot of students last year, for instance, who just really struggled with organization and those self-management approach to learning skills. So we said, you know what, we got to create a time where we can help those students kind of refine those skills. So we made an organization group in that time. And that's just 4 times a week, half an hour, just a little blip to say, I gotcha, and keep you moving in the right direction. So we start with that. And then again, we probably move on for those students who are struggling more significantly than what we can capture in a 30-minute period 4 times a week, by possibly referring students to what we call our student support team, having a meeting around what might be going on, whether we need to evaluate, whether we need to try some things out and come back and meet in 6 to 8 weeks. So I know there's all sorts of different names and acronyms for those sorts of meetings in different school districts. And those, of course, might lead to IEPs, individual education plans. And for some students, 504 is more appropriate than an IEP. So that's where we try to make sure that we are providing any support for any student, and including them so that we can remove any barriers they have to feeling successful.
And if your county or your school can all get periods like that, that can be very beneficial. I just want to reiterate what Ms. Russo said. At a high school level, we have one of those as well. We call it Pride Period because we're the Patriots and Patriot Pride. But it's great because you can use it for counseling meetings. You can have organization groups, study groups, college groups. You can have clubs meet during that time. So if kids don't need extra support or interventions, they can get that service component that's needed as part of the MYP and IB program. You can work with them on personal projects or learner profile traits. You can have learner profile trait groups if there's certain kids that you want to focus on certain learner profile traits, or like study skills groups, other interventions to help the kids be more successful in your programs.
So thank you, Carrie. Absolutely. So this slide just kind of is just a way to remind everybody that we're all here advocating for students and what they need to be successful, and to remove those barriers. So teachers obviously are crucial in that, but students also need to be advocate for themselves, and we as counselors can help them learn those skills to be advocates for themselves. And of course, parents and guardians sometimes are the very best advocates. And so making sure that they're part of the fold and partners, as opposed to, sometimes we can get in seeing things in our own perspective. So always knowing that all of these different groups are advocates for what we think is best for the student, and the student voice should be in that conversation as much as possible. And this is pretty much what we saw before, just in a little bit more detail. And we pulled out kind of the important pieces a few slides back for our school's policy to reflect this.
So we just want to go over some of the things that that we do. Like this is like the meat of what the counselors are doing throughout the school year. And so the first is under environment, student support. We have needs assessment. We do a needs assessment at the beginning of every school year, and based on the results, we'll tailor our counseling groups based on the needs, as well as our cell lessons. So we have cell lessons that take place at least once a week on our asynchronous work days. And so a lot of those lessons are based on student needs. For example, in our needs assessment, we saw that a lot of students said that they need help with focusing, help with organization. There were a few other really big ones where a lot of our students said they needed help and support. So we made sure to create lessons to actually help students in those areas. Next, we also did a needs assessment or an assessment, and we gave a similar survey to staff members, to community members, to parents. And so they also talked about what they see as needs for our school and needs for our students. And a lot of the same needs that the students identified for themselves were in line with what the community and parents said and teachers said were also needs. So it was good to have information from all groups. There's a weekly grade level meeting that takes place, and during those meetings, the counselors, each grade level counselor will attend their grade level meeting. And so during those meetings, they will talk about students who need a little more support, and they will talk about what kind of support or interventions can be put in place. And of course, from there, there's a discussion about whether or not something more is needed than interventions. Counselors have office hours as well. Everyone has office hours. All teachers have office hours, and so our counselors do as well. Counselors have Canvas pages. That's really a great way for counselors to push out messages to all of their students at one time. So a lot of the counselors will send messages multiple times per week. It could be reminders. It could be just messages to keep the students engaged in this virtual environment.
And Dante, I'll just interrupt for a minute for people who might use different platforms than Canvas.
Sure.
That's just what our kind of learning platform is. All of our teachers form their lessons in their Canvas class, and students have access that to get all their assignments and their announcements and their grades and all of that. So I think there's like Blackboard Learn and other things out there like that. So just to clarify.
Thank you. So definitely I'll make sure to use, especially in this environment, it's become key to making sure counselors stay engaged and in contact with the students. There are support messages that could be we have counselors sending messages saying, good job, you may have improved in this area, or it could be a message just saying, we realize we're in a virtual environment. However, we want to stay connected. So let's all get together and watch a movie, or anything to help support, to make sure students feel like they are connected with the rest of the school community. There's review of student data that takes place all year round, especially during interim reports, marking period time. Whenever students get report cards, we do review data and see which students are in need of something a little deeper, like some intervention, whether it's math intervention, English intervention, and then we try to plan accordingly. Of course, there are meetings with parents and guardians. We've been doing lots of those where counselors have been meeting with their grade level administrator with the parent to talk about concerns, or sometimes counselors are meeting with the teachers and the students, or the teachers and the parents to talk about concerns.
Ms. Rizzo, were you going to add anything? Okay.
After you do.
At the high school level, we do a lot of the same things that they do at the middle school level, but some of it's slightly different because our kids are a little older, and so we are able to do some different things with kids that middle school or elementary school counselors might not be able to. One of the things that helps our county, we have student advisory groups and parent advisory groups, and the kids can join from 9th to 12th grade. And they just meet once a month or every other month, and they talk about concerns related to the MYP and IB program, getting the parent and kid perspective. Our county also has an advisory board where they have 1 or 2 parents or kids from each of our IB high schools, and they meet to talk about issues or concerns related to the program. So getting the other stakeholders involved is going to be very helpful. In addition to monthly, sometimes weekly, depending on the subject areas, meetings of the teachers, where like they were talking about, you're talking about different kids, and are you meeting their are you giving them all the resources that they need? How can we better help them? Maybe in Miss Jones's class, the student's doing really well, but struggling in Mr. Smith's class. Well, what is Miss Jones doing that's helping that, the other teachers can do? I think that's very beneficial. It's very important, though, to make sure that those meetings come from a point of how can we help the kid, not one teacher complaining about the kid and the kid not doing well, but come from the support lens. Okay, well, great. That kid's struggling in your class. Who here is he not struggling in? And using those tips. I think that's very important. As a counselor, I also think doing your own unofficial needs assessments or survey can be very helpful. A lot of times, if it comes from the principal, the county, or even your department chair, there's not that relationship with the students that you can have and you can build over the years. And so they might not be as honest with their concerns and issues they have. Whereas if you do it yourself with your kids, because you have that relationship, you're going to be more likely to get honest answers and be able to help support the kids in what they need. At the high school level, we also, in addition to office hours, we have Google Meetings where kids can pop in at certain times. We have Google Voice numbers that parents and kids can text us or call us at during the workday. We have a platform called Naviance, which helps with the college process and careers. And if students put their email addresses in there, you can send them email messages by grade level, by counselor. And so we use that to get a lot of information out there. You can also, under the college visits, set up different meetings where kids can join. So if you wanted to put an email out there that said, hey, if you're interested in, learning how to be more organized, but, you can sign up with Miss Smith. First 15 kids, you could kind of make like a college visit, but it's more for different groups or activities that could be helpful. And you can never review data enough, whether it's your school looking at it or you looking at it and you're seeing where your kid's struggling. I know myself, I was looking at my data and I noticed one teacher in one subject area had a lot of kids with lower grades. And so that can be conversations you have with the teacher or administration on, is this a teacher thing? Is this a virtual learning thing? Or is this, they just happen to have a bunch of kids who are just not accessing the resources available? And if that's the case, then how can we support those kids? So I think always looking at your data, every interim time, every report card time, if you can get reports run in between that, just constantly reviewing the data on your kids. That's all I have, Ms. Russo.
And I'm realizing my stuff comes later, so thank you. That's great.
All right, and so a lot of this we've already discussed. As far as office hours, Canvas, needs assessment, and the cell lessons. Sorry, so we've already discussed this. So we do discuss interventions. That's with the teachers and with coaches. Like we meet with the math coach, with the reading English coach as well. And so we discuss interventions. What can we put in place to help students, and how can counselors be a part of making sure students receive the help? So that's happening on like a quarterly basis. Like right now we have all the counselors all the grade level counselors, they're looking at data within their grade levels to see which students need support based on their quarter 1, quarter 2 grades. And then we're working with the math coach, reading and English coach to determine what will the intervention look like for these students. And so that happens throughout the school year. In addition to that, we have a school progressive plan, and the school progressive plan, this is an overall plan that has several goals, but as a counseling group, we do have one particular goal where we are pretty much the driving force behind making sure kids receive what they need to meet this goal. And so that's a social emotional goal. And right now that goal is to make sure every student in the school feels connected to at least one adult in the building, because we do want to make sure students feel supported.
At the high school level, a lot of that is very similar. You're always looking with interventions, having discussions with teachers, with coordinators and administrators. We're different at my school as we have the MYP program and the diploma program, whereas middle schools, you only have the MYP program. So we have coordinators for both programs. And at my school, we have a counselor who's myself, who focuses mainly on the kids that are slotted or cohorted to continue on with the diploma program when they hit 11th grade. So we work as a team, and we're constantly meeting, and we're discussing kids and how can we help them, and how can we even get more kids involved in the program. And a lot of that comes with your teachers in 9th and 10th grade and having conversations with them. Are there any kids that you would recommend to continue on with the IB diploma program that might not be one of the cohorted kids? And when kids are struggling, put them on academic success plans. Have a meeting with the counselor, the coordinator, their parent, the kid, and get their buy-in. What is it you need from us? Because a lot of times as a school system, we try and think that we know what's best for the kids, but asking the kid what supports they need in addition to the supports that we think they need, and kind of coming up with a plan together.
And so we also, I believe, Carrie mentioned using Naviance. That's also something that we use here in Arlington Public Schools. So counselors will be using Naviance to do a 6-year course planner with students. So they'll start looking now to see what courses they want to take while in middle school, as well as what courses they plan to take in high school until they graduate. Those meetings will take place in about a month or so. As far as career assessments, I'll actually let Ms. Russo talk about something called Power Lunch that was just put in place this school year, which I think is having a good impact.
Sure. So like all of you probably have had to do, we're trying to be a little creative this year to offer some things that would be a lot harder to do than in the past when we were in the building full time. So we used to have just a big career day, 8th grade. Students could pick their top 3, do a career assessment, and tie in with seeing different career speakers and different career clusters, all of that jazz. Well, there's no way that we'd be able to pull that off this year. So we decided to do something we called career power lunches. And we are just having a speaker come each week from this point forward in a variety of different careers, and then students are able to select if they want to come. So this kind of had twofold, at least there's some sort of conversation about career and thinking about next steps and learning about it. Even if they don't come, they're hearing information about the upcoming speaker. But probably even more important than that, and I know when we've been talking about these things, we're focusing a lot on the academic, and while that's a big part of our role, the social piece is also huge. And so I'm finding some of the same kids come to every power lunch because it's just an opportunity each week just to connect with other kids and to have an informal place where they feel maybe slightly more comfortable putting their camera on or asking a question or that kind of thing, because there aren't so many people there, and they're just having an opportunity to connect with other people and to look to the future when things are maybe a little less scary than they are now. So that's what our power lunches are about.
And as far as the academic advisement process, as far as the academic advising process, I didn't go over that on the last slide, but one thing that we did this school year, because we are in a virtual environment for our rising sixth grade students, we created a Canvas course for rising sixth graders. And in that course, we put in multiple videos. There's a video that shows about 6 or 7 current sixth grade students. They're on a panel just answering questions about what it's like to be a sixth grade student. There are videos that go over academic expectations, as well as what courses students can take in grade 6. There's a video that gives a tour of the building. And there's just other helpful information within the Canvas course that students and parents can look at, and it can help them make decisions for their grade 6 courses. In addition to that, we also did a live event where we just had a live Q&A after students reviewed the videos. We had a live Q&A event. They could ask any questions, and we answered. That was very helpful. It's something that we may look at doing in subsequent years. Even though we will plan on meeting with kids in person, I do think it was very helpful to still have the videos, something that kids can go back to and review.
And at the high school level, academic advising is very important, especially when you start someone who's going to be going into the diploma program in 11th and 12th grade. It gets to be tricky with graduation requirements, MYP and IB requirements, especially if the student also is an avid student or a band student or a dance student. So it gets to be very tricky sometimes, and you need to make sure that every time you meet with the kid from year to year to discuss their classes, that you're also thinking long-term. Okay, so if this kid is an avid and he wants to take an AP class in 9th grade, that's a daily class. How's that going to affect him in 10th grade? Will he have a chance to get all his requirements in, or will he down the road have to take a 1-year IB course? It's almost like you're juggling sometimes, especially with virtual right now. Trying to meet with kids has been tricky. It's like Dante said, like having times where kids can pop in and ask you questions. We did a scheduling Google website, and parents could come in that night and ask questions, and it had all these forms, including videos that I made for each grade of how to select your courses. We had worksheets on like helpful tips. Basically, if the kid followed the worksheet, they could pick their schedule for them. Having nighttime as well as daytimes that kids could come in and meet with you to go over their schedule or answer any questions they have. Because even if they're only in 9th grade, some of the decisions they're making for 10th grade could affect the next 3 years of high school to try and get all the graduation requirements in. So academic advising is huge. So when you're having 9th and 10th grade counselors help kids select their classes, everybody needs to be versed in MYP and IB. Are they taking the right classes? For example, we're MYP school-wide, so all of our 9th graders and 10th graders have to take a language. And so are the counselors putting them in the language? Are they putting them in the arts and the design classes that's part of the MYP program? That's huge. We still go into the classrooms. I think Angela said she's doing it too. We go into the classrooms when we're in person. We're still doing it virtually and having presentations on careers and college and things like that to help the kids. And this is also a time where you can infuse those learner profile traits, just like teachers can when they're teaching, and they can say, oh, well, Johnny, great. That's so caring of you. Good job. You can infuse those into your lessons as well, and make sure you're pointing out, this is when you can be a risk taker, taking classes that are maybe slightly challenging for you, but that you're willing to try, things like that. We do lunches when we're in person. We have an IB suite. So my office is right next to this big room with both the MYP and IB diploma coordinators. And we keep it open during all of our lunches. And the kids can come in, they can get on the computers, they can study, they can just talk to us. And so I keep myself free as much as possible during that time, because that's good time just to talk about anything. It doesn't have to be academic all the time. Start to get to know your kids. So they'll come to you if they have problems, and you'll know them down the road when you're helping them pick classes and apply to college, because they're not just a name. You can put a face to them. You can put all the activities. You know, they play soccer, or they run track, or they're in the mock trial team. So I think that lunchtime, if you can keep yourself free for that social and emotional piece, is key for all counselors. Those are my big points.
Carrie, if I can just tag on a second what you said. So it's so important that we continue those things as counselors, especially this year when kids need these relationships and these, connections more than ever, when they're feeling probably somewhat isolated, depending on what situation of back to school you all are in. But in addition to that, I am so moved, I guess, by what our teachers in our building are doing. And I do credit some of that to this kind of IB ethos that we have of community building, that we actually even have some teachers that have started some lunch bunches too. So, sometimes there's a little bit of a, stigma. Oh, I'm going to the counselor for a lunch bunch or whatever, which is what I love about Carrie, is just jump in, talk about anything, you don't have to be seeing the counselor. But we're finding a lot of, some teachers have started a weekly kind of topic of the week lunch bunch. So they're doing one on superheroes tomorrow. And it's a chance for students to feel like they know their teacher as a person as well. And we know that if students don't feel connected to school right now, they're or any time for that matter, they're not going to do as well as if they feel like they're personally connected to the people there. So that's a great way to just kind of encourage not just the counselor, but everybody in your school to really develop those relationships with their students.
So Ms. Russo already went over the career day and power lunches. In addition to that, we do have a ramp advisory council in order to make sure we do hear the voices of our community members and our parents. And so that takes place once a year, where pretty much they give us information and let us know like what can be improved, what can we improve upon, what's going well, what's not going well, providing any recommendations. And so that's parents, students, teachers, administrators, counselors, and community member. So we get input from different groups. Besides that, we do have an equity team. We have an equity team that's run by our equity coordinator. And so that's actually just getting up and running. It just got up and running about 3 weeks to about a month ago. I believe we have about two of our counseling members on the equity team. And so that's geared just to make sure that there's equity in every sense throughout classrooms, and the content, programs, just in every aspect of our school building.
At the high school level, we have a lot of similar things that they do at the middle school. I also included that we have a lot of parent nights, even virtually. We have one coming up for our incoming ninth graders in the IB program, actually on Tuesday. Like I mentioned, the parent advisory board, but it's also important, I think, to coordinate with other programs your school might have. Like the signature, ours is in international economics and finance, and we have a signature program coordinator who has a lot of relationships with community members. And so that's very helpful. And programs like AVID that work hand in hand in supporting, MYP IB students. So if you have Project Lead the Way, or you have other signature programs or different things, working with those coordinators and see if you guys can make your programs mesh together is important. In addition to equity teams, our school has a school improvement plan, and there's different groups like attendance, or there's an IB one, cultural awareness and things, and different teachers sign up for those teams, and counselors sign up for them as well. And so it's a good way to get involved and kind of find out what's going on in your school. So that can be important. And I also think we have counselor liaisons. So we're assigned to each department. And every time they have a department meeting, we attend those meetings. And that way we can impart any counseling information to them, any MYP or IB information to them. But we also find out what's going on in their departments. And if they have any concerns that we need to be aware of or that we can help with. Because a lot of times, we get so focused on what we can do to help the kids that we forget that, is there anything we can do to help the teachers as well, or other staff members in the building?
Carrie, can I just get a little off topic, but you mentioned AVID a few times, and I'm familiar with the program from my old district because it's amazing, but I'm wondering if some people might not know about it, and it's kind of great link to counseling stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's advancement via individual determination. And it started out for kids who were first generation college students or non-traditional students looking to go to college. And it has progressed where it's kind of more for anybody who, needs help with study skills, organization. Maybe their parents went to college, but it's been a while. The college process changes. So they work with them on how to take notes, how to study. They form, for a better term, I forget the exact name, study groups where anyone who's struggling in chemistry gets together and they help each other out. Anyone who's having trouble with English 9, they can get together today in class, and they have those breakout sessions. AVID also helps them with going on visits to colleges, doing college and career searches, helping to write college essays, the application process, scholarships. So it's a very good program. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, that's not for IB kids because, that's for kids who need extra support. No, it's great for IB kids because we need extra support as well. Our kids are taking, a lot of them are taking all honors or AP classes as 9th and 10th graders, and, all college level classes their junior and senior year. And that's a lot of stress. And let's be honest, in elementary school and even most middle schools, how much time do your students actually spend doing homework? A lot of the stuff for tests, they can just listen to the teacher in class and give answers. When they hit high school, or maybe not even 9th grade, maybe it's 10th grade, maybe it's 11th grade. But at some point, just listening to teachers in class, just taking notes and reading them over isn't going to help them. They're gonna struggle. And AVID is there to catch them when they fall and teach them different ways to be successful in the classroom. So I love AVID. I think it's wonderful. Not in our county. Our county has AVID in middle school as well, but I'm not an expert in AVID, so I'm not sure where that starts. But you can have it in middle school.
So Carrie, do you have a next slide on the lessons in class as well, or?
I do. Mine is this long one that just popped up.
Oh, okay.
The other one I think was you guys. So we do lessons in class just like the middle school. And those could be the importance of a transcript in high school. Could be on careers, on colleges, but especially on the personal projects. They have to complete a personal project as part of the culmination of the MYP program. And they start that in 9th grade, and it continues on until 10th grade. And I've got a really nice slide at the end that will go in more detail about that. But we do a lot of lessons in the classrooms regarding their personal project to make sure that they know what they're doing. We've got posters in the classrooms with the learner profile traits as well as MYP information, the approaches to learning skills and things like that. Unit planners, our teachers have tried to make their lesson plans kind of mimic the MYP unit planners and things like that. So a lot of people think IB or MYP, and that's something else I have to do as a teacher. My best way of thinking of IB and MYP is it isn't something else. It's just good teaching. You're teaching the same material. You're just teaching it a different way. You're using slightly different terms. And so I think when teachers get all stressed, that's just the way I try and explain it. It's nothing new. You're not doing anything different. Yeah, what you put on the board might look slightly different, but it's just good teaching. So that's my plug on that. But all 9th and 10th graders have to take a language in our school because we are MYP school-wide, and that's part of the subject areas. As well as we try to get their arts and their PEs and their technology, their health. We try and get those classes out in 9th and 10th grade. So that way they've got room for their IB classes, their juniors and senior year, as well as if they want to do an internship, a partial schedule, and go to the community college, they'll have time in their schedule. So it fits well because those are also MYP requirements. So we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And we have a high emphasis on research, especially in our honors English classes, but even in our non-honors English classes, because they all have to do a personal project. And so we work with them through their English classes on the personal project, as well as next year, we're going to add other areas like the social studies areas and the sciences will start doing things with a personal project. A way a counselor can get involved is every personal project person has to have a mentor for their personal project. And it doesn't have to be a teacher. So if you're a high school counselor, get with your MYP coordinator or your IB coordinator if they're the same person, and ask how you can get involved. Because I supervise a couple of kids with their personal project. I also supervise a couple of kids with their extended essay in the IB program. So there's ways that you can get involved. The good thing with that is too, one of my personal project kids isn't even one of the cohorted kids for IB, but I'm getting to know him on a different level because I'm meeting with him once a month. We're talking about his interests because the personal project is a project they do of an interest to them. So I'm finding out, I'm having relationships with kids besides my caseload, and that's kind of nice sometimes.
So the slide that just said lessons, that was mine. Sorry, I mislabeled it and didn't include the lessons. So I just added a few more for when y'all take this PowerPoint and you can adjust to whatever you would like to put in there for your schools. But just some of the lessons that we cover in middle school, the counselors generally, the grade level counselors generally go into classrooms about once a month. And right now they're doing that virtually. And we use the Second Step program, which some of you might be familiar with. We find ourselves adapting it quite a bit because sometimes it can be a little bit of a snooze fest. But the lessons, the concepts themselves are so aligned, of course, with IB skills. So we have tailored some of our Second Step lessons to be more focused on what our students really need right now in this virtual environment. We had all of the counselors did some sort of lesson around organization and those self-management skills around being successful in this environment and giving them, the online tools they need to be successful. And we've also focused a lot on stress management this year, since we're all stressed in new ways. And beyond those lessons that we do in the classrooms once a month, we also do a social emotional learning lesson every Monday. And that's our asynchronous day in our district. So students have to do that lesson on their own. So we kind of try to guide them through that as much as possible with videos and things, but giving them an opportunity for some skill development with those lessons as well. So just really kind of focusing, probably when you're looking at the lifelong learners, students actively develop thinking, research, communication, social, and self-management skills. I would say the counselors at our school leave the thinking and research probably a little bit more to KIP to develop and our coaches to develop for TA lessons there, and what just our teachers do amazingly every day throughout their classes. And then our counseling team really focuses on developing lessons around communication and the social and self-management skills. But then going to the slide I'm supposed to be talking about now, this one, the Lifelong Learners 3 is talking about collaborating. And so we have a bunch of different ways that we do that as well. And we've spoken about some of them before. The advisory council that we have in the fall and the spring, the needs assessment also is in the fall and the spring. And I think we're going to do something kind of mid-year now too, is a check-in as our district is moving into more back in the building face-to-face learning. And then collaborating and relationship building. We've also have a really nice thing at our school. We have a community garden, and our students can work with people, parents, community members, and we have one of our teachers who's kind of taken that on as her major project. And students learn a lot about not only community building while they're working on that garden and growing food, but then also giving back to the community and sharing those foods with our local food pantry. And then we've already talked about the power lunches and those sorts of opportunities that we try to incorporate throughout the year.
And I didn't create a high school slide for that one, but I did want to touch base on two things because about the building relationships piece. As a school counselor, and this isn't really related to MYP, but I'm always looking for ways to build a relationship. I coach 3 sports. I have been a class advisor. When I'm not coaching, I'm trying to go watch my kids play. And I know that I don't have kids. I don't have a husband, so I've got some more time on my hands. But the kids notice you when you're at their mock trial meet or if you're at their football game. And just even if you just stop by for 5 minutes, that's key to building a positive relationship with the kids. And they'll know you, even if you're not their counselor. They'll be like, oh, I saw Miss Climbs at the soccer game yesterday. She saw me score my goal. She said, congratulations. Things like that is huge. I've been a class advisor. I've subbed when I needed to for the National Honor Society. So is there ways that you can help your school out, even if it's just for a short term because a teacher goes on maternity leave? Standing in the hallway for hall duty. I only have hall duty every other day in the morning, but I'm constantly in the hallway saying good morning to kids. They recognize that. They remember that. And also our school's lucky that we have a therapy dog. And the therapy dog is actually my personal pet. And so she's housed in my office, and the kids can come and they can sign her out if they're stressed. But that way they're not in my office missing class. If the teacher's okay with it, the dog goes to class with her and she sits on the kid's lap or on the desk, and the kid's learning and listening. And it's really not a disruption. The kids are used to it. It's not a problem. It's a little dog. She just went away to get food, but she could literally sit on this folder. And so that's helpful. And that's also helped me form a relationship with kids because they'll stop by on the way to class for a quick pet. They can't be late. But so kids that aren't mine, that have anxiety or issues, now know who I am. And I'm forming those healthy relationships with those kids as well.
That's such a great idea. And I know one of our middle schools in our district is trying to get that started there. And we should think about it too. I think there's a program at the elementary level called Pause to Read. So I don't know if that's something just to put out there for anybody looking for something like that, where students will actually not only practice their reading skills, but then also have that kind of stress reduction, anxiety reducing time with a pet. So check it out.
That's really good for your ESOL kids.
Yes.
This is her, by the way. Your ESOL kids who don't feel comfortable reading, or we have something called ACC kids. They're non-diploma bound kids. And she goes to class with them and helps with their interaction, their reading, talking. They have conversations with her. And so they can be used not just for relationship building, but for academics as well.
Absolutely. It all relates. Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing that. I think I am on the wrong slide here. So I think, Kip, we skipped over the community. Oh no, we didn't skip it at all. My bad. I'm sorry. Okay. So individual counseling meetings and goal setting. So I'm sure that all of you are doing this, middle school, high school, whatever level. But everything is really around setting personal goals, and our counselors will certainly do that during academic advising, but also throughout the years, especially with those students who are struggling socially or emotionally, having those weekly check-ins in some case, or as needed in some place, group setting or individually. Those definitely happen on a regular basis. Then I've talked a lot about our TA lessons, and second step, I got ahead of myself there. But when we're talking about students taking the opportunity to develop their language profile, something that may be fairly unique to our district, and go ahead and pop it in the chat if I'm wrong about that. Maybe this is something you offer as well, is something called credit by exam, where we are honoring the knowledge that our English learners have brought with them, and the fact that they are fluent already in a language, and making sure that they get high school credit that recognizes that. So that's a great opportunity for students. And we also are kind of the head of our language department for the district shared with us that they have been really looking at our Spanish for Fluent Speakers program. So that is, instead of just taking an exam, so the credit by exam is offered once a year, and students can just take that test, and then could get up to 3 credits of high school credit for that language. But we're also finding that the Spanish for Fluent Speakers program, where students are in the class and they may speak fluently but not have the same level of skill in their reading or writing, that is helping amazingly with their overall academic test scores and their confidence as a learner. So that's another, if you have opportunities in your district to reinforce programs like that, or if you have them, to really encourage students to take advantage of strengthening their home language. We found that's really a helpful thing to do. And our library, I guess we have to do a shout out to the librarians, even though we beat them with the number of participants here. They have an amazing number of resources in a multitude of different languages to make sure that students can strengthen their home language, that students who don't know another language besides English have an opportunity to see things in other languages and know there's a lot more than just English out there. And to, if they are learning another language for the first time, to see publications in that and use those in their learning as well. So that's a great resource.
I also want to give a shout out to the librarians. As part of an MYP IB program, your librarians are key. They make sure you have the resources for not just the cultural and languages, but for all your classes. You know, if a kid has a personal interest in design and wants to learn more about design technology, are there books or resources, online libraries, things like that your kids can access? As they're working on their personal project or research projects in class or their extended essay, do they have the proper resources? Do they know what websites they can use and where they can go? Our librarian is amazing, and I don't know what we would do without her. So if you have not made friends with your librarian, make friends with your librarian, because she may be able to, or he may be able to help your students in ways that you don't know. There may be an interest or an expertise that they have that's not even academic related. Because I think, Susan, you mentioned earlier, you know, about having a relationship with an adult in the building. You know, that librarian might be somebody that you can, you know, point kids towards depending on what their personal interests are. So for that matter, get to know your custodians and your administrators and everybody, because everybody's unique and has different things that they have interests in. And that's one of the things that our school does, I think, a really good job of, is for our clubs and activities. If there's a club that a student wants to start and we don't have it, all they have to do is go to administration with the idea. And as long as they have a plan and it's not against certain rules, Then they say, okay, find a teacher advisor. And then we start up the club for the kids. So we've started a lot of clubs over the years based on just kids doing that because of an interest they found. So that's nice. Helping kids to get involved with sports and other activities, because things they may not even tried before, but getting them to explore, take risks, different things like that. Their personal projects is another way that they can explore their cultural identities or interests, because they pick the topic, they investigate the topic, they come up with a product, and I'll go more into that at the end. But the career lessons, Naviance, if your county has Naviance and pays for Naviance, that is huge, because they can research careers. They can, explore a day in the life of different careers. They can watch different people speak about their careers. They can take a career test, and it'll give them a list of jobs they might be good at. They can take an interest inventory and find out what they're good at, or a strengths inventory and find out what their strengths are. So there's a lot of good resources on Naviance. They can create resumes and things like that. So if your school uses Naviance, feel free, contact me. I'm our school's Naviance guru. Naviance is up on my computer right now. I log on to Naviance before I even log into my email every day. I send transcripts through Naviance. I do a lot of emails. I've sent 4 emails to my different grade level kids today through Naviance already. So it's, instead of creating distribution lists, like, I can do it all through Naviance. So it's a great thing if your county will pay for it. But especially if you can get clubs, Spanish club, Chinese club, Latin club, salsa club for, dancing, different things like that can really help kids explore their cultural identities. Oh, so this is my personal project page that I was talking about. I cannot take credit for this. This is all our county MYP coordinators and personal project coordinators. So each of these, when you go into the presentation yourself, they're linked. And so you guys can click on it, and you can see frequently asked questions. You can, thank you. So there's frequently asked questions here. You can review that. There's the rubric and templates. Go back to the frequently asked questions page. See on the left where it says rubrics and templates. This is great. So you can click on this when you're in there, and you can open up different templates and you can see it. If you click on the next one, e-learning lessons, we've created, and when I say we, not me, our personal project coordinators and our MYP coordinators, and they've created on the lessons one that says e-learning and lessons on the left. So you can click on these and you can see the lessons. And if you see the ones that are starred, like where it says written report and planning for the written report, those are actually like graded assignments as part of the projects. And so there's lessons, there's Bitmojis you guys can click on and things like that. It's a really great website. If you click on the, if you go back to the presentation, Mr. Malinowski, and you click on the very last link, it's a short video. I don't know if you guys want to watch it or you want to watch it on your own. My MYP coordinator put it together. He couldn't be here today. He wanted to, but then an appointment came up. But it kind of talks you through the website and the and kind of explain how we use it. So if your school wants to set up something similar or steal some of the resources from us, and why reinvent the wheel? Save the link, copy and paste.
And that's what networking is all about, right? So if you have any questions for anybody, or just want to share some ideas that some of what we shared made you think about, of things that you're doing that we could all benefit from hearing about, please drop in the chat or just unmute and tell us what you got. I did see one question that I didn't in the chat that I didn't get to. I talked a little bit about those Monday asynchronous lessons, and somebody was saying how do you get students to be accountable for completing those lessons? And you're right, that's not perfect, but we do have them complete a Google form showing that they reflected. There's a learner trait on that assignment, and then they'll be marked for attendance after doing that form. So hopefully they're not cheating the system on that one. But it is a good way to get some information out there.
And Daisy asked if anybody had any lessons for the learner profile traits and things like that they used. I don't know if anybody wants to throw them in the link that the Google Drive that we have. That might be a great place for people that they could put the lessons and then they could pull from there.
And this is Kip Malinowski, the IB coordinator at Jefferson. Yeah, so I just put the Google Drive again in the document, and everyone should have editing access. So if you have anything great, please share it. That's what the purpose of this is all about, is that we get better together. And I've definitely got some learner profile. It's great. I've definitely got some learner profile lessons that I will upload and share. There's so many great things that some of our teachers are using, Flippity, Edpuzzle, all these different ways of teaching the learner profiles. And we're trying to get all of our kiddos to talk about being balanced, being inquirers, being communicators, and really practicing that across the school.
And I don't know about you guys, but I found for being kind of technologically not too astute and on the most part, how many programs there are out there that really engage students more than if they were just sitting in the classroom. So my hope is that we're going to take those programs and really get those personal reflections from students, because we can hear from all of them instead of just the ones that raise their hand in class. So yeah, Kit mentioned a couple of really great ones. The Flippity, Nearpod has been great. I don't know if you guys have used Padlet at all, but just super crazy how easy that is. And it's a way to get everybody to feel comfortable and to share their reflections and their learnings with each other. So I'll put some of those in that group folder as well. Any other questions in the chat that we missed? Feel free to just to share them with us if we're not seeing them, or programs that you found that you like.
Can I ask a non-program question from the chat?
Absolutely.
So I'm Abby Watson. I'm the principal of Academy for Discovery at Lakewood. My two amazing counselors are on here as well. So my question is, just because I'm brand new to this as well, does MYP require a counselor to student? Like I ask people about their ratio, what they have. We're weird because we're a 3-8 school. And so my counselors are, broken up from elementary, and they're doing a great job. But if there's a way that I can fight and have some backup, like IB makes me have to have XYZ to get, another person, that would be great.
Yeah, happy to. So we just went through our evaluation process, and one of the things is that there is a big emphasis on the new standards on student support. And so if you look at this, it's in the Google document, but I'm gonna just pull it out here, which is this Google sheet with all the highlighted actions. So every highlighted row involves school counseling. And this is just the ones that we decided as a team. We looked through it and said, these are the ones that do it. But there is about 30 or 40 IB practices that go directly with the role of school counseling, that it is a necessity in order to support student learning, in order to create a good environment and a good culture for learning. School counselors have an incredibly important role in doing exactly that.
Do you know when your school's last recertification process was?
So we are actually, we're doing our unit planning review right now, and we are October 2022.
Because I can't remember what it's called because ours was a little bit ago. But I've been through a couple of cycles of that. And when you go through the approval process and recertification, and that's not the right word, but thank you, the reevaluation processes, they will tell you like what you're doing well and areas of concern and things that you must fix. So if you're lucky, you might have the ratio in one of those areas of needs to be addressed. That's going to be your best bet. But I don't think that IB says you have to have a certain number or even a range of numbers.
But using the spreadsheet that Kip just shared, I might be able to use that as well. Sorry, my dog's barking at the Roomba. It's a giant Rottweiler too. He's just not the smartest. That might be something I can use, for some evidence and some oomph to try to get, even a halftime person just to help out as well. I mean, I'm doing anything I can to get some more bodies.
Abby, I was just going to say for ASCA, it's a recommended 250-to-1 ratio. And I don't know if that actually exists anywhere on the planet, but there's that. And I put a little graphic in the link or in the chat, sorry, if you wanted to share that, if it helps anything. Is that what you're going to say,
the
Daisy?
same thing. Yes. If your department, and I'm sorry, I'm at home now with the kids. But if you, are going through the ramp process, using the annual agreement, use of time calendar could be helpful in getting some just numbers to show the need for an additional support for the students.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Because we're doing, it's budget season as well. So.
Hey, thanks for being an administrator who asks for those things. Yay, you.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other thoughts or questions?
Well, I mean, my last thing is this was amazing and wonderful, and I can't thank you enough. I literally just ended head of school MYP training through Florida last night. So this not just emphasized what they did, but you took it another level. So thank you so much for doing this.
Our pleasure. And please, that Google Sheet is helpful. Download it as an Excel or make a copy of it, use it wherever. Like there's a lot there, but that's every single thing that the IB asked for. And it really does. It ties with counseling, but it's all just about good teaching practices. This is all like the research on what works in schools and just putting it in one place, making it consistent and transparent. And it just really shows the good that we can do for kids if we think together and think creatively and execute upon it.
And the one thing that I love about IB is like there's always somebody willing to help you. If you find there's a document you need or a lesson you need, if you reach out to one of us, or a local IB school, I've never had somebody tell me no that's not willing to share or to help you troubleshoot or figure something out.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. I'm sure the gift of 6.5 minutes here we could all cherish. So thank you for spending so much time at the end of a busy day and a busy, stressful time.